How does Will do this? Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Norm.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm again.
And he's Norm again. We are will-less tonight.
Yeah, Will had to take care of some family
business,
which is important. But we're podcasting after a short hiatus.
There's been a lot going on.
Oh my goodness. We've never been as busy, and in a good way.
Yeah.
Will and I, as we have these past 2 years now working with you. Is there a weird time dilation effect that you feel?
It's just that, like, every now and then I look up and I think, oh my gosh, a month has passed. And, something that, like, we were at Dragon Con, 12 days ago or something, right? Like 14 days ago.
About 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it feels like you get that feeling that even though Dragon Con, as an example, was just 2 weeks ago, it feels like a lifetime ago.
It feels at least a month terms of what's happened in between.
Right. But then, and things like Comic-Con feel like a year ago.
Yeah.
But there's so much that happened.
Yeah, it is. It's this happens in my life a lot, where things get really busy for a while, and then they get really, really chill for a while, and they get really, really busy, and they go back and forth. So we're right now sort of at the tail end of a crazy busy. Well, actually, it's not a tail end. I got stuff going on every weekend now through early November, and then. Well, we're going to announce this very soon, but Jamie and I are going to tour the Behind the Myths show around the country again this late fall, in early winter, November and December.
Oh, very
We're
cool.
doing 30 cities. So it gets crazy again.
30 additional cities?
30 additional. Well, I think we're going back to some cities we already went to, but yeah, we're doing 30 cities in 5 weeks.
Amazing. You said you had something to show me.
I do. So every now and then on eBay, I have my things I go search for. I might look for Akbar. I might search Jason Bourne. I might search Colonel Kurtz. Things that I'm interested in.
And these are just saved searches on eBay.
Exactly. And they're just, it's when I'm bored, when I'm on a plane, and, it's like a breath I'll take from something else. And one of the things I search for regularly are Strandbeests, which is Theo Janssen's walking. We did a segment on Tested of me building one.
And we saw a mechanical one at Maker Faire in the Bay Area. The leg movements, the mechanical design was inspired by the Strandbeest, but this guy also put like a geodesic dome on top.
Right.
And that was very cool.
So the models I have of the Strandbeest on my shelf that are my favorites are from this Japanese company that puts out a magazine that also includes a model kit. And they have all sorts of different cool model kits, like a 1-to-1 replica of Galileo's first telescope, which I bought and I built, and I love it. It's great.
I think the kit is called Gakken.
Yes.
And it's like science for adults is the translation.
And they're expensive. They're about $120 for one of these. But something happened. And now they're like $11. I don't quite understand, except that the magazine itself has been torn out. And I wonder that if this is like kind of like a remaindered book where they tear the cover off. But this is just the Strandbeest kit and the directions. And I got one for you.
Oh.
I got one for Will, too, when he shows up.
So this is it's not like a bootleg kit.
This is not a bootleg. This is from the same molds, same company.
It
it's
says
not
Gakken.
The
volume 30, and this is the same book cover.
It is the same book cover, and it's the exact same kit. It makes a beautiful wind-walking Strandbeest. You blow on it, and it walks, and it's absolutely one of my favorites.
And the only thing you don't get is the literature.
Yeah.
Cool pictures, but I can't read it.
Well, and there's actually the literature includes all this very cool stuff of people doing other things with them, like attaching motors or making them activate in other ways or making them motion sensitive, etc.
Yeah, I bought a kit at Maker Faire because Make Magazine also sells some of these kits on their website, and I got one, and they're evergreen. Like this one, I don't like. This one's new, but they have kits that were built or sold several years ago. They still sell them because it's still relevant.
Right.
And I got a synthesizer, which was very neat.
Oh,
like
nice.
A little DIY synthesizer in a box.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, wow, thank you, Adam.
There you go. Merry Christmas.
Oh.
And I think I tweeted about it the other day.
Yeah, so they should still be on eBay. You said there were a lot of them.
As far as I can see, there were 5 or 6 sellers. Right now, I think this is why I think it's a remaindered book thing. There are still people selling these kits for over $100, but there's a whole bunch selling with more than 10 available, selling them for between $12 and $20.
Huh.
And so I find myself wondering if there was an overprinting or something.
Or some unscrupulous warehouse owner.
I hope not. I hope that's not the case. I hope I really would be sad if I was helping someone screw somebody else out of some dough.
But they're very good kits.
They're beautiful kits.
And we recommend anything in the series.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, everything I've bought from them has been fun to put together. And look, they were easy to put together even when the instructions were all in Japanese.
Very cool. Well, I look forward to building one of these.
Absolutely.
And thank you again. We want to talk about Dragon Con.
Yeah, we haven't done a recap.
Yeah. Or we actually never got to podcast there either.
We didn't?
No, we didn't. I know.
Oh, my God.
And so it's the last time I actually saw you was at Dragon Con. My first time there, you had been there.
I've been there 2 or 3 times before.
And it's unlike anything I've ever been to before.
Isn't it? I mean, if you've been to Comic-Con, you might think you're ready for Dragon Con, but it's a totally different scene.
There seems to be like a hierarchy, or maybe not like a linear hierarchy, but a way to ease people into going to conventions.
Right.
Because you have local conventions, whether it's a board game convention or even like a comic book convention. You can have your small ones, which are more independent artist based and maybe not as commercial and that big name. And then Comic-Con seems like a good, if you can get in these days, a good way to just immerse yourself in geek culture.
Yes.
But it's very commercial.
It's very commercial, so what you end up with is there's a lot of people that go just to watch the other people that are going. There's a lot of people buy day passes for that. There are a lot of people who go in costume, but when I say a lot, I mean Comic-Con's attendance is somewhere in the almost 200,000 range.
Yeah, it's a big convention center.
It's a big, giant convention center. So when I say there's a lot of people in costume, maybe that's like 20,000 people in costume. It's not. It's on a percentage basis. It's like 10%.
Right, and there are definitely more people just there, just gawkers, or shoppers, or just comic book fans, movie fans.
Probably probably the smallest contingent are there to actually meet the artists and get the comic books, which is a sad thing. Because Artists Alley is the coolest part of Comic-Con.
It is, and you can just bring $100 in cash and buy prints and
go up and meet your heroes. Buy a print directly from them, signed to you. It's totally amazing.
Get a commission even.
But I'd been to Comic-Con three times before I first went to Dragon Con, and I was like, oh, cool, Dragon Con. I knew about that. I'd love to go to that. And I went to that, and I was thinking, oh my gosh. Do you know what? So there are 2 of these. One is that alcoholics call New Year's Eve amateur night, right?
Yes.
Drag queens call Halloween amateur night.
Yep.
And I think that Dragon Con regulars think of Comic-Con as amateur night.
Or cosplayers in general think of Comic-Con maybe as the warm-up.
Well, it is a warm-up. Certainly because of Comic-Con's saturation culturally. People bring their A game. I don't mean to say that the costumes at Dragon Con are far better than the ones at Comic-Con, because they're not. There's just a whole bunch more of them. And at Dragon Con, everybody has come to play.
It's almost expected. You feel more out of place if you're not wearing a costume, whether it's just, a simple tunic or something, than you would at Comic-Con, where you wear a t-shirt and walk around.
Totally. And I mean, so Dragon Con, you're walking around, and it's not like there's a convention hall at Dragon Con.
Right.
It's just downtown Atlanta.
It's hotels.
Yeah.
I think technically it's 5 hotels, but 3 main ones are connected by these skywalkways.
Right.
And inside the hotels are these atriums, these massive, like 47-story hotels,
which make it feel kind of like a set of Star Trek.
It does.
Right?
It's a space station.
Episode of Star Trek.
Right. And you have the aliens over there. You have Doctor Who.
And Star Trek uniforms are one of the most regular things you see. So you feel very much like, oh, I'm in television land now. This is awesome.
Lets you role play mentally.
Yes.
And it's something that goes on for almost all night.
It goes on. Well, right. That's the other thing, is that when you first get there, it starts on Tuesday or
Wednesday.
It starts on Wednesday, right? So I arrived Wednesday night this year, which is earlier than I've ever gone. And as the nights progress, as the week progresses, I do believe, and I don't mean any disrespect to the cosplayers, because I am one of them. I am one of you. But things start to smell a little funky in the elevator on the 3rd or 4th day, because people aren't taking the costumes off. And they're walking around all day. It's Atlanta. It's Labor Day, so it's hot. And then everyone's staying up. I mean, the lobby of the hotel is going 24/7, and the hotel lets that go on so that you're not partying in the rooms and keeping people awake.
I confess, and then there's a lot of partying goes in the room. I confess, one night I did stay up till 5:30, and it was still very busy in the atrium.
I remember hanging out one night until about 2:30 in the morning, and I could hear people doing cosplay karaoke downstairs at the top of their lungs. It was awesome.
Oh my goodness.
Little known fact, I love karaoke.
You do?
I do. I was a diehard. For those who remember San Francisco's karaoke scene in the 90s, I was a regular at the Mint.
I didn't realize San Francisco had a karaoke scene.
Totally had a karaoke scene in the 90s. At least at the Mint it did, and I went there all the time. I don't
the Laserdisc era.
I don't do much karaokeing anymore.
What are your go-to
obvious
songs?
Reasons. I'll tell you the
not to put you on the spot, but you mentioned it.
Anyone would ask. That's so funny. I could nail "Round Here" by the Counting Crows.
Okay.
But my show-stopping number. I can't believe I'm saying it like this, but really, I would be like, "Well, I'm going to go up 3 times tonight. I'm going to start with "Round Here,"
and that's else. As a performer,
right?
You got to think of it that way.
And I would rehearse. I would get ready for it. Was "Try a Little Tenderness."
Wow.
And I could really do that song. I had a lot of fun with it. I just remember one night at the Mint, and so this would probably be like. It was long before my boys were born, so it's 95, 96. I get up and the music starts, and it's the trumpets from the beginning of Try a Little Tenderness. This would be the version from the amazing film The Commitments. And it's ba ba da da na 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 na, and it just pauses, and the vocalist says, "Oh, she may get weary," and I'm not going to do it here. Okay. But I started out the first one, and the whole first 3 rows was a musical theater group that had just had its opening night and were drunk and psyched. And when I started nailing this song, they became the greatest audience ever. And it was like a feedback loop. Every performer knows this. You get a great audience, and all of a sudden things can go really to a high level. And we just had the whole crowd just like freaking out towards the end. It was awesome.
Adam Savage karaoke.
You're never going to see it. I'm just telling you, you're never going to see it. I will cover songs. I like I did John Roderick's song. Tim Minchin has given me permission to cover one of his songs, and I think I know the one I want to do. I'm just not sure when.
You sang at Dragon Con.
I did sing at Dragon Con, but at Dragon Con I sang as Gollum.
Yeah.
The Gollum voices, I figured that's the kind of game I should bring to Dragon Con. We didn't do, every other year I've been to Dragon Con, my cohorts in Woodstock, Paul and Storm, and also Will Wheaton, have always been at PAX. And this year, Paul and Storm decided to go to Dragon Con instead. So we had, it wasn't the, what was it called, the Palooza?
It was like Gonzaroo.
Gonzaroo, that was it. And it was the big performance at Dragon Con on the Saturday night. And Paul and Storm helped Ken Plume organize it, and I brought around towards the end with Gollum singing "I Will Survive."
But you at Woodstock, you've also played the piano and sang, so it's something of like it's a guilty pleasure of yours.
Absolutely, no, it really is. I love learning new things, and we had a piano. We had to get rid of it because it was too big, and we're going to get another piano in the house because both my boys are very musical. And I wanted to teach myself a song, so I wrote to John Roderick and said, "Could I teach myself your song, The Commander Thinks Aloud?" And he's like, "Absolutely." And I've said this before somewhere, but he sent me the video of him playing the song and taught me how to play it. And so at Comic-Con this year, I broke it out with Finn on the drums and Paul and Storm providing backup vocals, Molly Lewis on the guitar. It was fantastic. It was really fun.
That's a video I think people can probably find on YouTube since filming is okay, is kosher at Woodstock.
But Dragon Con, back to Dragon Con.
Yes, let's bounce back up. It is a party that really goes on all night. You don't have a chance, I believe, to actually engage in that party atmosphere.
It is difficult for me to engage in that party, yes.
I can tell you, though, at some points, like after the Gonzaroo event, that room becomes a rave.
Really?
It becomes a straight-up rave. There's a Kiss cover band, an amazing Kiss cover band that plays.
Oh, my God.
And then the lights go down, and it is people in costume. Like, I go there, and I like meeting cosplayers and taking photos of them, and they told me, go at night. Because that's when everyone is really kind of loose and friendly.
It's the ultimate masquerade ball, and it lasts for almost a week.
It it's a party. It's like a Halloween party, but nonstop.
So the thing that I loved when I first went to Comic-Con was slowly having it dawn on me what a kind of, to the rest of the world, it's like, oh, these are people letting their freak flags fly. And sure, that is one aspect of it. And I don't mean to speak for cosplayers here, because there are people who are far more serious and dedicated than I am. It's making my 1 or 2 costumes a year. I still feel like a little bit of a dilettante. But there's also this really important theater that's going on. And it's a theater where everyone is both a performer and an audience member. And there's a real grace to that interaction that we don't normally get in theater and performance type scenarios. That's wonderful. So you have everyone in costume. When I was Jack Sparrow and I walk around, I found these other 2 Jacks who actually go out and perform as a pair of Jacks. That's the name of their performance troupe. And they have the mannerisms down, and they were talking to me about, I had this on the wrong hand, but they were admiring some of the other stuff I had, and they had stuff that I didn't have. And it was, and they never broke character throughout the whole thing. It's in the video of me doing my cosplay. It's like they never broke character. Those guys were tight.
It is a form of performance art.
Yeah.
In the entire spectrum of what that word means, that phrase means, because you have people, in expression of creativity, you have people who do weird mashups. And at night, I saw this group of cosplayers that had a big flag, and they were dressed as like bros with pop collars, and they were the riders of Brohan. And it would be a dozen of them with, many polo shirts and glasses, standing in a corner holding a big flag like Lord of the Rings, Brohan, handing out swag, wait 15 minutes, and then you move to another part of the room and do the same thing and meet a different crowd. And then you had people just start little dance circles and...
So there is. I've been reading I haven't watched Heroes of Cosplay yet.
Yes, right.
Chloe Dykstra, I know her a bit. Mm-hmm. She's a friend acquaintance, as I'll say. And I know that there's a lot of debate within the cosplay community about the way the cosplayers are depicted, the dramas that the show is drumming up, etc. But one of the things I love about it too is how really egalitarian it is in terms of just there's every body type, every range of attractiveness. Everyone gets to kind of live out an inner hero. And I've never seen or even smelled anyone within the cosplay community be like, well, you should totally not be wearing that shit.
Yeah, no one says that.
Nobody says that.
Extremely gracious.
It's incredibly, incredibly rare to run across any kind of negative response to that. I mean, I saw it first on the RPF. You'd see somebody who's like a 14-year-old kid in the Philippines who's got like, $40 to spend on an Iron Man costume, and he's making it out of cardboard and meticulously doing it. And it might be crunchy, but everyone is encouraging the crap out of him because it's like, good work, keep going, that looks great, and giving him reference and giving him guidelines. And that's the spirit of that whole community. And Dragon Con is like 40,000 people strong with that kind of feeling.
That's not to say that cosplayers can't be competitive, because they're entire competitions.
Absolutely.
And it's not like the show floor. There's a stage, there's a panel of judges, there's a whole multi-hour evaluation period.
And there's whole things about whether or not your costume was commissioned or whether it was handmade, etc.
But it's not at the expense of other cosplayers. It's more a point of pride in their own work.
Absolutely.
And there was a documentary I saw recently about the Atlanta cosplay scene. I think it was their public TV station. It's online. I'll link to it in the show notes. But it's wonderful because they're seamstresses, they're... prop makers and husband and wife couples who are working together.
Well, I've been finding as I look about and commission different people for different types of costume work that I need done, I'm finding the cosplayers of Etsy to be a fantastic and wonderful resource, because they're out there showing the stuff that they've made, the commissions they made for other people, the stuff they've made for themselves. You get to see them wearing it at the cons, and then because you're a cosplayer, instead of I've taken, I guess my V for Vendetta tunic was made by buying one that was pretty close, buying fabric that was dead to rights, perfect, and then taking it to my tailor. I got a guy who does tailoring for me in San Francisco. And, it cost about the same as it would to commission someone on Etsy, but there wasn't that interaction of the thrill of working on something together.
Yes, and you mentioned fabric. That is something that cosplayers are so serious about. I was walking with Keith Zendragon
Yeah.
and Abby Darkstar one night, and they were stopped by some cosplayers, and they spent 15 minutes in a hallway just talking about each other's fabrics, just examining the fabrics.
Well, I mean, you can spend years trying to find the right fabric. When I was doing some research on the alien spacesuit, it wasn't until someone sent me a picture of lacing pulled apart so I could see a flower hidden by one of the costume details in the original alien spacesuit built by John Mallow, designed by Mobius, that I was able to take that to Britex and find that it was this esoteric trim sold called broderie, made specifically for lingerie, and you can buy it in strips, and these strips were sewn 3 at a time around. I mean, that kind of research, which took me 6 months to find the right stuff. That kind of stuff is the whole cosplay community just spends hundreds of man years on it.
Wow.
And talking about you want it to be stretchy, you want it to wear right. There's all these different considerations. It's got to be cool, it's got to be warm, etc.
Now, this podcast is coming out beginning of October.
Okay.
And we know at the end of the month it's Halloween.
Yes.
A lot of people, when they see cosplayers, whether it's at Comic-Con or Dragon Con, they admire that craftsmanship. They maybe don't have those skills yet, and they want to get costumes like that for themselves. A lot of cosplayers, you offer services to make costumes for other people,
yes,
or
they
craft,
totally do.
or sell masks and helmets and stuff. Etsy is a great place for that.
Etsy is a fantastic place for that. You can also buy patterns. You can also download. Often, many people I've been finding when I've been looking up Admiral Nelson's uniform, and I found lots of sites devoted to Regency era clothing, in which the sites would have hundreds of clothing patterns you could just download and try sewing yourself with guides and step-by-step directions on how to do it.
And I think that I really want to communicate to people who might want to buy commissions that they have to take it seriously. It's not just like a Halloween costume that you can buy online on Amazon. These things they take a lot of time.
They take a lot of time, and I would actually say that given this is coming out at the beginning of October, if you are contacting a seller on Etsy about hand making a costume, I can tell you you'd be lucky if they could finish it for you in time.
Yeah, I doubt it.
This is the busiest time of year. However, and I have done this. You know how sometimes there are people like, somebody's crazy grandmother who buys all their wrapping paper on December 28th because it's the cheapest then. I actually do lots of eBay costume searches in the month of November. Because
thinking ahead,
get great costume parts because people will blow a bunch of dough on something, especially people who aren't serious about it.
Right.
And then they want to unload it, and you can benefit from their profligacy.
Oh, that's a good tip. It's like I'm buying candy on November 1st. I should be buying costumes.
But the main thing, I think, what you are alluding to is that the community is incredibly supportive. And if you find a costuming community, the replica prop forum is, repeated almost ad nauseum, is one of the largest. But there are specific ones for most types of costumes. There are entire groups about Spider-Man, entire groups about Wonder Woman, esoteric DC and Marvel characters, anime. There are people that have done huge builds for almost nothing at a craft foam and camping mats and yoga mats. There are painting tutorials for that. And again, if you feel like devoting a few dozen hours to this, the community will totally give you tons of advice as long as you're asking questions and, playing along and seeing what's going on and learning as you go.
Now, you've worked in film production on the model making side, but not on the costuming side.
Yes.
Do you think that someone like a costume designer on a film today is aware of that community, or maybe designs with that partially in mind? Because it's almost like free publicity. If you design a costume,
I can't imagine a costume designer is trying to design with that in mind. I really don't think so. But I do think that they are hyper aware of that community. One, because I know that community tries to reach out to great designers like Janty Yates from Prometheus, and I know Deborah Nadulman, who's an amazing costume designer, John Landis's wife. She's the would call it the grand poobah of the costume parade at Comic-Con every year. So she completely knows that community and really appreciates the amount of work and effort and exactitude that goes into that. Because, a costumer, it's funny, we think of model makers as being hyper exact, but man, when I've sat down and talked to film costumers, sometimes I feel like I don't know where it's at, because these folks will go to every degree to get. They'll have stuff custom printed and woven, like different types of cotton weave done in India and printed with special dyes to be super accurate to the film. Wow. And that's in the movies. That's not a cosplayer. That's a film going to that length.
Yeah. It's a weird symbiotic relationship between the fans and the content creators and the IP owners.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what makes Dragon Con so fun. Is sitting around and talking. I love it when I run into other people who've cosplayed costumes that I've done, because you've all done your time in the trenches, and most of those trenches are the same, but where they're different, things can get really cool, and you can learn really radically nifty things from each other.
Well, it's a convention that. It's easier to get a ticket than Comic-Con.
Absolutely. Still
highly recommended. It's a little more festive than Comic-Con, but highly recommended if you have a chance to go next year.
Dragon Con, it's Labor Day in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta. Get your tickets now, because the hotels book up pretty quickly. The hotels book up,
and I think the tickets get more expensive over time. If you buy early,
yes.
Then it's only like $50 or something for the whole weekend.
I had so much fun this year. I think it was my favorite Dragon Con yet.
It's really good to hear. Well, we started talking about Dragon Con and we end up talking about cosplay. And
you can't talk about Dragon Con and not have a deep, long, abiding conversation about cosplay.
They do go hand in hand.
Yes.
Well, that's about it for this episode. Subscribe. We'll be back next week.
We'll be back next week. Subscribe. Put your comments up on. We really appreciate and we read your comments on YouTube. I must admit, within the celebrity community, if you look at comments for content that you've generated, we call that cutting.
Well, I know Ben Affleck doesn't do it.
No, and I generally don't do it. I don't do it on the Mythbuster forums, but I do it on the Tested forums, because I feel like the community is really, really, it's a great community, and there's no trolling going on out there, and I really appreciate it. So we read those comments on iTunes. It really matters.
I also want to give one last shout out. We have the inventor competition going on right now. We're looking for your next assistant to work with you on a special project. The official deadline is October 7th. So there's about a week left. All the information
is ticking. We've got a lot of entries, and they're fantastic.
Yeah, they're blowing us away every day. All you have to do is record a 5-minute video showing off something you've made, a project you've worked on in the past, and telling us what type of skills you have and how you approach problem solving.
Absolutely. Enthusiasm is a plus.
And that'll be it for this week's Still Untitled. We'll be back next week. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.